decorations is a sign that sits on top of a bookshelf in my home. I've had this decoration for many, many years now, and some of you may have heard what it says on it in some variation before. This is what it reads. 3 wise women would have asked for directions, arrived on time, helped deliver the baby, cleaned the stables, made a casserole, and there would be peace on earth. Oh. Well, please know that I do respect every man that is in here. This was just a joke. I thought that it would be good to start off the new year with a little bit of humor, right? Today is the first Sunday of the new year, and even if you have taken down your tree, how many of you have started on decorating at home? Some of you. If you're going back to work and back to your normal routines, it is still Christmas. Those 12 days of Christmas start on Christmas Day, and so we're nearing towards the end now. Epiphany is in 2 days, and as I told the kids, it's the day where we remember the Magi who came to visit Jesus after his birth, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Even if we've never heard the word Epiphany, we've certainly been at least a little familiar with this story because we see the 3 wise men in our manger scene every year, right? Right along there, almost as if they came right after the shepherds came to visit Jesus. But according to Matthew, the Magi visited the Holy Family in a house. And some historians say that it may have been up to even 2 years after Jesus' birth. They observed a star that is supposed to represent the king of the Jews, and it is most likely that they were part of the priestly caste of Zoroastrianism, which is a religion from Persia that dates back to 600 to 700 years before Christ. They shared a number of different theological and ethical ideas to Judaism, and they believed in an all-powerful God, but they are about as different from each other as Islam would be from Judaism. So they were all very educated. These Magi were devout believers, and they were highly respected among their people. They studied the stars. They had an international reputation for astrology, and they took signs from those stars to be very valuable, often signaling the birth of an important figure. But I wonder if you've ever thought about what the Magi expected when they came into Jerusalem. You see, first they came to Jerusalem. They didn't go to where Jesus was right away. They asked Herod himself where the child is, as if they think that he should already know. Perhaps they were expecting that as they came into this city, the seat of power, it would be the obvious birthplace of a king. I wonder if they were surprised that there, weren't any parties going on for this king or little souvenirs being sold by vendors on the side of the street. There wasn't a celebration. So they asked, where is this child who is king? And when they asked, they found themselves in the presence of Herod himself. And here's what we know about Herod from history. Herod went from being the governor of Galilee to the tetrarch of Judea to then the king of Judea. He spent his life climbing the political ladder in order to gain power, but also he used his power to get rid of people who didn't serve his ambition. He had 10 wives. He ordered multiple assassinations, which included his sons. And when deciding who would take the throne after his death, he changed the plan of succession multiple times. But there's also this culture in Rome that I think is important for us to understand at this time. Rome appointed legitimate kings like Herod. At times, however, there were popular kings that would emerge. And when that happened, Rome would execute them as being treasonous. So when Herod hears, where is the child who is king of the Jews, he's afraid that either Rome has replaced him or that there is some other popular king uprising. So it's no surprise that he defaults to what he knows, figuring out right away how to execute him. There's an end of this story that we often don't read in the Bible at all. Sometimes we just skip over it to not really remember it. You heard part of it in verse 12, the last verse that Brian read, but if you continue on reading throughout the rest of chapter 2, you'll find out a lot about Jesus' adolescent life, which we also don't hear much about in the Bible, in the Gospels. The Magi were warned in a dream not to return to Herod. So they left for their country by a different way. You all heard that. And then Joseph was instructed in a dream to take his whole family and to flee to Egypt because Herod was going to search for and harm Jesus. So Joseph did what he was told. They all fled to Egypt together, and it was good that he did because Herod was very angry when the Magi did not return to him to tell him where Jesus was. And he was so angry that he ordered for all of the children in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years and younger to be killed. And Jesus would have been a part of that had the family not fled to Egypt. So here we see two responses to Jesus' birth. The Magi responding with awe and worship, and Herod responding with fear and defense and violence. And here we are at the end of Christmas and the beginning of this brand new year. And as you look to the future, I wonder, how are you responding to Jesus' birth? How are you responding to Jesus' birth? We are not tyrants who go around and start ordering massacres, but I'm not sure if we really worship with awe and wonder either. I mean, in these past 2 weeks, I'm sure there were times that you did on Christmas Eve when we were in this room and the lights were all turned off and we were lighting candles and singing Silent Night. Of course, there was a lot of awe and wonder in that night. But what about now? We're going to take down these decorations today. We're cleaning up our homes from all of the Christmas chaos. The kids are going to go back to school, and we will go back to normal. We'll go back to our normal routines. We'll go back to jobs that we love or jobs that we don't love, but that we need. We'll go back to routines that seem to be normal in this winter. I'm waiting for it all to hit my home, the sicknesses, right? The illnesses that may cause us to worry and have anxiety for the ones that we love, from aging spouses and parents to children, right? There's a lot of worry and fear around this time because of that. And we might be starting off this year with a lot of purpose and focus. Maybe we have our exercise plan or our healthy eating plan ready to take on some new and good habits. But we also may feel like we're wandering without much direction, just going through the motions. So how do we respond to Jesus' birth? Well, the Magi respond with this kind of odd and unexpected kind of humbleness. From the little that Matthew tells us about them, it's almost like they didn't really see themselves as important. They just wanted to get to the one who was connected to the star and see it for themselves. But when we think about who they were foreigners, they were stargazers, they were priests of another religion. They were quite unexpected visitors, not someone that the Holy Family would probably be thinking would come, right? They traveled 1,200 miles, though, to see this baby and to bring gifts. And yet, it seems to me that a group of people who would travel that far after studying the stars must have an awful great depth of faith and an assurance of God's plan and purpose for their life. I told you earlier about Joseph taking his family to Egypt to flee, and his courage is really what kept Jesus alive. The Holy Family, who everyone was supposed to be excited about, right, became refugees in an instant. And like many refugees of our past and today, they were feeling the brutality of a dictator who had no problem putting them to death and putting anyone to death who seemed like a threat. That escape to Egypt was a several hundred-mile trip, and they had the means to take that journey because of the gifts that the Magi had brought them. They turned out to save their lives when they needed it the most. Now, these Magi are really appropriately named wise men. They aren't just foreigners who follow a star to see if there really is a new Messiah, or bring gifts that are really expensive, or go a different way then on their way back because a dream told them to. They are a lot more than just that. Theologian Caroline Lewis writes this about the Magi. She says, "As much as I want to cast the wise men as just innocent and uninformed responders, they are resistors. They insist that their witness testifies to truth that will challenge power. They will defy authority, all because they believe in their own experience, their own encounter, and their own epiphany. They get that there just might be more to the story than what they have been told, and therein lies the heart of the Christian faith." There are a lot of Herods in our world today. There have been Herods all over the world since this Herod died. And those are leaders who will do anything to keep their power and their plan in place, even if it means hurting thousands of their own people. These kind of leaders lie and manipulate. They make everyone around them fearful. I wondered this year, as I read this story again, how many people supported Herod's mandate of the massacre of the infants, right? We think that it's unimaginable, but I wonder if Herod made it seem somehow attractive and necessary in order to gain support. There's an Episcopal priest that I listen to often who recently shared about how the empire learns to sound ordinary when it's necessary. Perhaps a good starting question for this new year is this: are we following the leaders of the world, or are we following Jesus? If you were the Magi, would you return back to Herod, or would you have the faith and courage to go home a different way? I mean, really, think about it, would we believe the Magi if we were with them? Would we believe foreigners of some other strange religion? Would we rely on the dreams of some guys who followed a star that supposedly represented the birth of the Messiah? If we didn't know anything about the rest of the story, would we really trust them? Or would we trust Herod, who's a leader who is highly respected, accomplished, and seems to know what he's doing because he's the appointed leader? You see, I think it's easy for us to go with the flow. It's easy to agree, to blend in, especially when the world around us seems so divided. It's easy to just tune it out, right? It's easy to follow the status quo, have everything operate as usual. And it would be easy for me, too, to preach a nice message about New Year's resolutions that makes everyone feel good when they leave this place. And some Sundays I really want to preach that sermon. But I've talked about this before. Sometimes I ask myself when I'm preparing for Sundays, part asking myself and part praying as well, do I go there? Do I challenge us to take a risk? How will people react? But then I hear that still small voice whispering in my ear, Rachel, are you following an institution, or are you following Jesus? The Magi were willing to take a risk for the sake of God's plan. They were willing to make a king upset so that Jesus could survive and grow to save the world. They believed enough in their own studies, in their own stories, in the epiphany that was before them, in this infant king, and in all that God had revealed to them to take a leap of faith and make a wise choice. So what does your own story tell you? What has God revealed to you, and how are you responding to Jesus' birth? One of my favorite quotes that floats around this time of the year is by Howard Thurman, and I think it's a good reminder for all of us. This is what he wrote. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flock, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among others, to make music in the heart. There are so many ways that we are striving to bring peace and to make music of the heart. I love that phrase, music of the heart, here at Linglestown Life. And I certainly hope that you will join us. This year, I want to be as wise as the wise men. I also want to be part of that wise woman tribe that makes casseroles for people who have just had babies, because that's a great thing to be ambitious for as well. But mostly, I want to follow the things that lead us to Jesus. So let's be on the side of those who are hurting and use our voice and our gifts to stand with them. Let's take risks for the sake of God's plan.